With each inhalation, smoke brings its more than 5,000 chemical substances into contact with the body's tissues. From the start, tar, a black, resinous material, begins to coat the teeth and gums, damaging tooth enamel and eventually causing decay. Over time, smoke also damages nerve endings in the nose, causing loss of smell. Inside the airways and lungs, smoke increases the likelihood of infections, as well as chronic diseases like bronchitis and emphysema. It does this by damaging the cilia, tiny, hair-like structures whose job it is to keep the airways clean. It then fills the alveoli, tiny air sacs that enable the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the lungs and blood. A toxic gas called carbon monoxide crosses that membrane into the blood, binding to hemoglobin and displacing the oxygen it would usually have transported around the body. That's one of the reasons smoking can lead to oxygen deprivation and shortness of breath. Within about 10 seconds, the bloodstream carries a stimulant called nicotine to the brain, triggering the release of dopamine and other neurotransmitters, including endorphins, that create the pleasurable sensations which make smoking highly addictive. Nicotine and other chemicals from the cigarette simultaneously cause constriction of blood vessels and damage their delicate endothelial lining, restricting blood flow. These vascular effects lead to thickening of blood vessel walls and enhance blood platelet stickiness, increasing the likelihood that clots will form and trigger heart attacks and strokes. Many of the chemicals inside cigarettes can trigger dangerous mutations in the body's DNA that make cancers form. Additionally, ingredients like arsenic and nickel may disrupt the process of DNA repair, thus compromising the body's ability to fight many cancers. In fact, about 1 of every 3 cancer deaths in the United States is caused by smoking. And it's not just lung cancer. Smoking can cause cancer in multiple tissues and organs, as well as damaged eyesight and weakened bones.
Seven million people across the world have died as a result of tobacco in the past year alone. Just imagine if a brand new industry were launched today and by the end of next June, that industry's products had killed 7 million people. Would any of us invest in that new deadly industry? Tobacco is one of the most pressing global issues of our time, and most of us are far more complicit in the problem than we may realise. So the Superfund representative explained to me that tobacco companies would be found in the international shares portion of my portfolio. So I asked him, well, which international shares do I have? He got back to me 2 weeks later with this list. My number 1 holding in international shares was British American Tobacco. Number 2, Imperial Tobacco. Number 4, Philip Morris. And number 5, the Swedish Match Company. 4 of the top 5 companies were tobacco companies, my investments and oncologist. And then I realised it wasn't just me, it was all members of my super fund. And then I realised it wasn't just my super fund, it was all of them. And then I realised it wasn't just superannuation funds, it was banks, insurers and fund managers. And then I realised it wasn't just Australia. It was the entire global finance sector, completely tangled up with the tobacco industry, the industry that makes products that kill 7 million people every year. So I started discussing the issue with my superannuation fund, and I've been discussing it ever since. Finance leaders have many challenging issues to deal with these days, so I suggest they adopt a framework that clearly articulates why it is reasonable to take a strong position on tobacco. I suggest finance leaders ask a suite of 3 questions of any company in which they might invest our money. Question 1, can the product made by the company be used safely? No is the answer for tobacco companies. 0 is the only safe number of cigarettes for a human being. It could not be more black and white. Question 2. Is the problem caused by the company so significant on a global level that it is subject to a UN treaty or convention? Yes, is the answer for tobacco. Indeed, there is a UN tobacco treaty that has been ratified by 180 countries. The treaty was created because of the catastrophic global impact of tobacco. The current forecast is that the world is on track for 1 billion tobacco-related deaths this century. 1 billion deaths. There's only 7 billion of us. Question 3 relates to the concept of engagement. Many financial organisations genuinely want to be good corporate citizens. They want to use their shareholder power to sit down with companies, engage with them, and encourage them to do better things. So the question is, can engagement with the company be an effective lever for change? No, is the answer for tobacco companies. Engagement with the tobacco industry is futile. The only acceptable outcome would be if tobacco companies ceased their primary business. In fact, engagement with the tobacco industry has never led to less human death. When we consider that framework, 3 simple questions, we can see that it is reasonable and defensible to take a strong position and exclude investment in the tobacco industry. In Australia, New Zealand, the Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, France, Ireland, and the USA, by sovereign wealth funds, fund managers, pension funds, banks, insurers, and reinsurers. Since tobacco-free portfolios began, more than $6 billion has been redirected away from investment in the tobacco industry. The case study is well and truly proven. When making the tobacco-free announcement in March this year, the CEO of AMP Capital said, "We are not prepared to deliver investment returns at any cost to society." And that is a question we need to ask ourselves. Is there no baseline standard below which we will not sink to make profit? Along the way, I've had a lot of help and incredible support. Now, if you're trying to do something, I highly recommend that you have a princess on your team. Her Royal Highness, Princess Dina Murad, is the global ambassador for this work. We also have a lord, a knight, a former premier, a former federal minister, and a stack of CEOs. But the capacity to change things does not rest exclusively with these highly influential people. The power to do that is with all of us. Everyone here can be part of the solution. In fact, everyone here must be part of the solution. Most people in this room own companies via their superannuation funds, their banks, and their insurers. And it is time for us to ask them, are they investing our money in companies that make products that kill 7 million people every year?